Hi, and welcome to Ask the Manager. We have Deb Lebeaux with us today. She's the better half of John Lebeaux. And she is a town meeting member for many, many years. And you work as
I worked as.
Shine counselor.
Oh, yes, I do.
A Shine
that,
counselor.
yeah.
And you were the chair of the library trustees?
Yes.
Up until recently.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago. It
So you
switched over.
Switched
Yeah,
over.
yeah.
And you're also by occupation a licensed social worker,
Yes.
an LICSW.
Yes.
And so we're happy to have you here. And there's one other piece. Your mother was phenomenal in the town also. She was a
Thank you for
major
saying
contributor.
that. Thank you.
And she was one of those people that you just had a lot of respect for all that she did for
She
all
was
of us.
one of those people who said yes to everything.
Yes.
Yes, I'll do it. I'll do it.
So she
Yeah.
was wonderful too.
Yeah.
And so thanks for being here with us
Sure.
today.
Thank you for asking me.
And one thing I have to comment, did you go to the Memorial Day Parade?
I did not.
Oh my word, the speaker this year was, I swear, the best speaker we've ever had. His
was
name is, I've got to look again, John Martin. I'm terrible with names, so I didn't want to
Yeah.
say the wrong name.
Griffin.
John Griffin, see, I said the wrong name. I wrote the wrong name. And he had been in the military for 30 years as a Marine.
Oh, wow.
But his was so personal. His talk was so personal that it didn't matter where you were on the common listening. He captured us, and I could see people with like tears in their eyes
Wow.
as I looked around. It was just great, and
I'm sure it's on tape. Maybe I'll
yes,
try to
it
catch
is. So you should definitely watch the Memorial Day Parade so that you can see and hear John Griffin's phenomenal speech. And it was extremely personal. And he moved to Shrewsbury in, I think it was 2013. So he is a Shrewsbury resident. Sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't, but it's our good fortune that he is.
Yeah.
So why don't we start with your first
with
question?
my question? Okay. Not all of my questions will be related to the library, but I think I'll start with that.
I wish I'd
way.
have known you were coming. I'd have brushed up on my library skills.
You've been a wonderful asset to the library,
thank
so
you.
thank you so much for everything that you do to sustain and maintain it. And also thank you for a good town meeting this year. I know it was sometimes
Yes.
a little rough around the edges, but we got it done.
Yeah, we
and
did.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So part of the town meeting obviously was budgeting and all the work that was done before that. And one of the things regarding the library, as you know, is that we hired a second reference librarian. That's a really tough position in the library because they're on all the time, doing anything from some very technical reference type of question to helping with a copy machine, jam. So they're just on all the time, and it's pretty grueling, and they're very much in demand. So we hired another one, but right now the payment for that person's salary is strictly through state aid, and that's not a sustainable
Sure.
type of thing. And I'm just curious as to whether you're thinking about that, if that position could be assumed by the towns,
Yeah.
by the town, and if so, how do you see that happening?
Yeah, I mean, I know that's the plan,
Yeah,
ultimately, is to be able to subsume the funding of the position through the general fund. And it's been a great partnership with the library trustees and being able to use a model that not only have we utilized library state aid, but in some instances, the funding that we get through the formula for the senior center or like a federal grant to help augment our staff. So what I would see for this position is hopefully over either the next 2 or 3 fiscal cycles to pull it away from library state aid and into the operating budget. Incrementally, you have 50%, 25%,
Yeah, that's what we had
or
talked
something like
about.
that.
Yeah.
Being able to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I know that's a critical position because we've had challenges keeping people because of that constantly on
Exactly.
Aspect of
Exactly.
it. And
Yeah.
it's really demanding. You probably know the numbers better than me, but 1,000 people or so a day come into
1,000
the
people a
library?
day, on
Yeah.
average, 1,000 people a
Yeah,
day.
I mean, that's a lot
Yeah,
of.
and we're, the library's open 67 hours a week.
Mhm.
So it is a lot.
It is a
It
lot,
is a
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
And you did touch on something, and this, I am sure, is not specific to the library in any shape or form, but just maintaining good people
Yeah, yeah.
is tough. And salaries are important to talk about. We
Yeah.
have masters prepared librarians that we still aren't quite at the right grade level
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
And we want to keep them because we train, they work for us, they know the Shrewsbury system, and we don't want them to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's a, in 2019, we kind of switched systems within the classification and compensation, and we
Yeah.
really felt like we made a lot of progress. And then the pandemic came, and then inflation took off, and
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
we feel like we're behind already, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. And in some areas with high technical skills that are needed, like the library, it seems to be across the board.
Yeah.
In some other areas, we're a little better off, in some other departments, but I can't agree with you more that, we're competing with private sector entities, and in the library world, it's quasi-private sector entities like college libraries and other specialized libraries. So it's something that we have to continue to work on, and we're in a good spot financially versus some other cities and towns. But man, it seems like the funding goes so fast when we turn the budget and have 4%. It looks like a good number in aggregate, and then it just goes so quickly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the growing community, because we haven't had to pull any money out of the override stabilization fund, we've been using sustainable recurring new revenues each and every year. And that's the strength of the economy and of development in town, which is a really good thing. So.
I don't know how you do your job because you have to juggle so many different competing interests. I mean, I think that spoke to me a lot at town meeting. There are people who want to maintain Shrewsbury as a kind of quasi-rural community. That's not going to happen anymore. Where the horses left the barn in that regard. But certainly, I understand that we want that, but yet we also have to have some business, right, to help keep the coffers up, and I think that we talked a lot about that at town meeting.
Yeah, when it comes to private development, and I was fortunate to be on a call with some state officials, DEP folks yesterday, in the town of Westboro, talking about the sewer treatment plant, and getting near capacity on that, and it's interesting to me, and I mentioned this on that call, is that we are finally seeing sustained interest from like the private commercial development within the community. Those things that we probably desired to have seen over the last 20 years or longer, that were only kind of making their way to Southborough and Westboro. Like, we were so close, but it never made it to Shrewsbury.
Yeah.
But now those towns continue to see growth, and then it's finally quote unquote coming here. And if you talk to developers, it's because of the Metro West is starting to get built out, and not a lot of room. So we're fortunate to have it, but it does change the landscape quite a bit, and I respect people's opinions on that. But it is a balance, and it can be frustrating, right? Let's have some commercial development, but not here or there or there. But, I do respect that, because it changes the landscape quite considerably. Yeah. But it has been good for the taxes and the revenue, and even the mixed-use developments like Edgemere and Lakeway. Those have been revenue positive for the town of Shrewsbury, and it has really benefited us. We've seen a lot of communities across the state ask for overrides this year, and a lot of them have not been successful, but just in general, a lot of communities needing more money than Prop 2.5 allows them. So.
To go along with what you're talking about, along with business development, we're finding they always want to throw in apartments. And residents are saying, stop the apartments. We do not want any more apartments for all the reasons as it negatively impacts our budget, and for other reasons probably too. Some of those apartments have proven to be not bad and not negatively impacting the town.
Yep.
But you have a reputation of being pro-apartments. How would you respond to that?
Well, so there's only so much that we can actually control in town. And I mentioned this at town meeting, and I hope it wasn't taken any other way but sincere. But, the question was asked, why is all this development occurring? And that's because private people who own land are interested in developing their land. And so every time an apartment community or a business comes to town, that's not town oriented. That's us oftentimes trying to get the best outcome by working with someone who has a right to do something in town. So I've never heard that I was pro-apartment before, but what I will say is when I look at Lakeway Commons and when I look at Edgemere, and that redevelopment, those two projects individually and together are fiscal benefits to the community. They are bringing us more money through tax levy, whether motor vehicle, personal property, general real estate tax, than the cost to service those residents. So that, and we all know the price of housing and the cost of rents. There's a lot of value in that right now, and that value, when it generates a tax dollar, exceeds the cost that we need to service them. So I want the community to be whatever it is. I don't want it to be about me, right? I serve the community and want to build the best outcomes in working with the select board. I'm not recruiting apartment communities or anything like that. It's just when those opportunities come. I've been in communities where those opportunities never present themselves, and it makes it challenging to provide services that residents want and expect. So it's, there's a little give and take that comes with it.
But there's a key factor to what you said, and it doesn't, these recent apartments haven't cost us to be in town, but that the landowners have the ability to do that based on our zoning and our regulations that have been in place for many, 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 many years, up before you were born. So it's more a reflection on what a landowner or a property owner can do with their property based on the rules that have been in place for decades.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback on that whole issue of apartments, I was wondering about the MBTA mandated, what is it called, the commuter rail?
Yeah, MBTA communities zoning.
Zoning.
Yep.
So I know the town has kind of identified where the old Christmas tree shop as a potential area, and people, I've heard some negative reactions to that. Why do we have to do that? And according to the press, there are towns that have actually voted down in their town meetings that to accept that kind of overlay zoning type of thing. Just out of, again, this is kind of prompted through lenses of the library, but we get a lot of state aid for the library. We have to fulfill a lot of obligations to get that state aid. If we don't pass something like that, are things like library state aid, school aid, that kind of a thing, is that in jeopardy?
Those categories of aid are not in jeopardy, at least as far as it's interpreted and being regulated today. Those are, kind of statutory programs that seem to not be impacted by this. What are some more discretionary areas we've benefited from and have had a lot of success in receiving grants. Big programs that help us with infrastructure like Mass Works and what they call the Community One-Stop Program now. Those discretionary funding areas are what's in play there.
So they're a little more vulnerable than.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. What next steps are, or beyond that in this first round of what some cities and towns are doing and what how communities are looking at it. I think is a different story.
Because it kind of goes back to my statement earlier, that we need some businesses, right? Some balance,
Yeah.
and that is zoned a
Yeah.
business section.
Yep.
And yet on Route 20, there's apartments going up, it seems to me, left and right,
Yep.
that are within that half-mile
Yeah.
distance to a train station.
Yeah.
We don't get credit for those.
No, it's, we are charged with creating a new zoning district that has a minimum density of 15 units per acre. To create 1,500 units, it has to be a new area.
It has
right?
to be,
Yeah.
even though voluntarily, or
yeah.
people who own land
Yeah.
have said, this is
And-
what I want to do with
Yeah,
land.
and even some of those developments, because of the land area associated with them, the developments themselves, if you look at the total land area, don't meet
They
that
don't meet that
criteria.
15
yeah,
per acre.
Yeah.
So what's the benefit of putting that article off until October town meeting?
Well, there's, the community had requested and said, the way I've heard it, look, the state has afforded communities the opportunity to review the zoning language prior to you taking it to your town meeting. And they'll give you, it's called pre-adoption, it's not pre-approval, but they'll review it and provide some limited feedback. And we didn't afford ourselves of that. And I'll talk a little bit more about why we didn't in a second, but we didn't. So the community thought that was important, and the select board recognized that and said, okay, then let's take that opportunity. We have until December 31st. Let's go through the pre-adoption review and let's get the feedback from the state. So what competes with that in my mind, and I think there's many flaws with MBTA. I think someone with the concept of trying to increase housing stock in the communities to address challenges in housing, they had it right, but everything in between and then the outcome, as often happens in lawmaking, got flawed. So, I think when we go to pre-adoption, it doesn't make any sense to continue to engage with the community and request feedback, because we can only submit one document with one map and one set of zoning narrative to the state and ask them to review. So it's kind of disingenuous for us to submit to the state for pre-adoption and say to the community, how could we change this? What should we do? What do you think about this? Would you like us to think about this differently? We took that community engaged approach, the beginning of this calendar year, and, didn't go for pre-adoption. But, so now, we're submitting for pre-adoption, and for the next 90 days or so, we can't change anything. It doesn't matter, And then once we get that pre-adoption feedback, if there's something that we need to change, then we can engage with the community on those areas. But if we deviate too far from that, then we're going to be submitting something that, doesn't recognize the value of the pre-adoption process. So it's a catch-22, I guess, is probably the best way that I can think about it.
Is there any benefit to opposing this bylaw change
Well,
or mandate?
I don't see any benefit right now. I think if the legislature and, powers at the state see that there are flaws with MBTA zoning and they want to address that, then we'll benefit from those changes in the future. I think fighting the state and not trying to, again, meet that spirit of those original authors that says, hey, we should find a way to increase housing stock and we just want communities to zone for this. I don't think fighting the MBTA, zoning initiative is the right approach.
And how will you go above and beyond to prevent hearing over and over and over again, I didn't know they were doing that. I never heard about it. When you advertise it so many different ways through the media. What's your next plan to be sure that it's very out there for the public, beyond what you do?
I don't know. It's a major frustration, to be honest with
Yeah.
you, because I think, well, let me just look at it from this lens. What we did for this town meeting and through, let's just say from January to May of this year, as far as engaging with the public in meetings and providing information out of our office, is like 1,000% greater than it was, the prior year and definitely 3 years prior to that. So, I am serious. Like, I'm not sure what it is that we can do, because, communications are a two-way street and people want to, have to be informed and engaged. I would love when someone learns about something and doesn't understand it, that they reach out to our office and say, hey, I wasn't aware of this. Can you get me to a website that may have some background information, rather than, set up some, I'll call it secondary dialogue in the community to refute what the town is doing. And I'm trying not to go on a tangent, but like that really frustrates me. I'm willing to engage with anyone who wants to have a conversation about why we're doing, what decisions I've made, what decisions staff have made, how we're thinking about these things. But when you set up like a parallel dialogue in the community and just want to fight the town and don't even really take the opportunity to learn and understand why we're doing something, that's really frustrating to me. And yes, I am asking residents to come in, and I'm, I don't try to intervene into that secondary line of communication because they've chosen that path. Our offices haven't changed, and we're always available. That's why we're here. We're here to serve the community.
And town meeting members have received
And continue to
amazing
receive,
amounts
yeah.
of volumes of information pre-town meeting, which I think is great.
It really is.
And much appreciated by everyone. That's all I hear. It's the people beyond town meeting members that we need to figure out how to reach, because you don't have the Worcester Telegram where everybody opens up the paper and it's right there. And I'm like, how can you live on top of a project and not know it's happening? But good luck with doing your best to make that happen. There's been a couple of communications where a couple of apartment complexes want to raise the low-income housing rental.
Yep.
You mean the actual price that tenants pay for rent?
Right.
Yeah.
So how did the select board address that?
So the select board has to take action on it, but it's a formula that comes through, and it's based upon 80% of the area median income. And as that number increases, then the affordable rents that they're allowed to charge increases with them. You're seeing it much more now because whenever it's a unfriendly 40B project, the select board doesn't have a vote or a role in the process. Whenever it is a friendly 40B or a local initiative program or LIP, then the select board votes on that. To be honest with you, the board doesn't really have the ability to try to negotiate or say something different. It is a formality. It goes through the state executive office of housing and livable communities, but
So the formula is median income.
yeah.
So if you look at the median income, that's going to hurt anybody looking for an affordable unit because the median income is so high.
Yeah, and it's 80% of that. So as the median income gets, eye-popping to all of us, like we'd never thought that would be, an average measure of income in the area. It makes those groups that we know are most vulnerable, older folks and younger folks, have more challenges in maintaining their ability to even stay in affordable units.
So as we try to put on a white hat and do the right thing for people needing affordable units, they're going to get priced out anyhow.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But that's not your control. That's
Yeah, it's a state formula based on the 80% of the area median income, which is, Worcester County.
Wow. Oh, it's all Worcester County. It's not just Shrewsbury.
Yeah, correct.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Once in a 40B project, I know a percentage of the units have to be affordable. Is that for the life of the apartment?
It is,
It is.
yep. And, so it's perpetually deed restricted.
It is,
So
okay.
whatever that percentage is, it does have to remain there forever, which is good. Yeah. So,
Okay.
so Spectrum wanted a cable franchise in town. How
They
is that?
do.
How is that received by the select board?
So they are reviewing the application that came in, and I'm glad you bring that up because maybe we can talk about a couple nuances of that. So Charter Spectrum applied for a cable franchise license to come in and operate a cable system within the community. Upon the application, the select board has an obligation to hear their application and understand what their proposal is for the community. They're still in the middle of the public hearing process. The board had their first hearing at their last meeting, and the second one will occur on June 11th. But I think what I'd like to clear up is, the board is required to go through that process. We didn't, the board or I
didn't
or
invite
staff,
them.
we didn't invite them into the community. Like I know we get little credit, but we're not trying to bring someone in to compete with our own department. But the federal law says that competition in cable providers is important. And I know the federal law, when it was created in the 70s or 80s around cable TV, wasn't really envisioning the fact that a local government would have their own system and that they wouldn't actually want to compete against a private for-profit entity, but that's the situation we find ourselves in. So we didn't invite them in, but they're here. And if they do come in, it's still a market-driven decision. They may choose, if the select board would grant their ability to build a system, which is actually pretty hard not to grant the ability to use the system.
It is difficult.
Very difficult, because
Yeah.
again, in the federal government's eyes, competition, not a monopoly, is how the economy should work in the country. So if they did come in, it doesn't mean Selco goes away. It just means Selco has a competitor. So it would be individuals choosing to invest or buy from an entity other than Selco if they were granted a license.
So do they
I'm not
have-
saying they're going to get a license.
But if they did, do they have to put in their own cable
Oh,
line for them?
100%.
Okay,
Yep, they
so
have to build out the whole community.
I had this vision when I did see that little part of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of the cartoon with the tall, skinny cat with the top hat on and the big mustache. And that's how I felt that they were talking, because they were, oh, we'll give you this and we'll do this and then we have this prize for, and they laid that out there, and some of the select board members seemed to fall for that, like, ooh, that's really a nice thing to do. And I'm thinking, no, don't take their lollipop. It's like, to me, it was like, don't fall for that, because that's, have you ever asked people who have that type of product in another town or city how they feel about it? I know I experienced it with a relative in Worcester, and it made our cable program rise
Yeah.
so high in comparison. And it's like, don't fall for that, because it's not going to benefit the residents, is the way I felt. But what's also fearful is that, how do you stop it? And legally, they're going to get wrapped up as soon as if they say no, they're going to get wrapped up.
Yeah, and I mean,
So you don't have a choice.
in the context of this process, and literally, 349 other communities in Massachusetts, right? There's only two, us and Norwood, who now operate our own cable system. The question that would be being asked of those communities, if you have company A, do you also want company B? And it's a little more personal here, because company A happens to be our own, company, which is Selco. So, that's the broadest aspect of it. It's not anything that we've asked to bring to us. And, there is an exchange between me and the gentleman from Charter there, and he said, we made the town an attractive offer to buy your cable system. And my response back to him that, attractive is in the eye of the beholder. I didn't think it was attractive at all, their offer. And we, in conversations internally, decided to not pursue that, as an option of selling the asset. So.
And I also thought it was great on their plan that they didn't send in all the men in suits and black shiny shoes. They, sent in people who kind of looked a little, normal like the rest of us instead. And so to bring the threat level down, but to me, that is such a threat. I just think it's, something that won't be good for the town. I can see if you had them in town and a competitor wanted to come in, great.
Right.
But in Shrewsbury, people don't realize the benefit,
How lucky we are.
that we have with the cable system that we have and everything about it. Going right down to the people that have to come to your house to help you,
Yeah.
are people that if you've been around, they're familiar to you. They're you know, you don't have just a transient person coming into your household. They're people that, you know, you drive by them on the street and they wave, and, you know,
Yeah,
they're
they're part of
people.
the town.
Yeah, they're part of the town.
Definitely.
So, I mean, there's just so many things about it that it's just unsettling.
Well, cable is a misnomer, right? Because they're doing away with cable, which I'm not
Which-
too
That's
happy
a very
about.
fair point. Yeah.
Have you tried to turn on the live stream yet? Oh, my
Well,
word.
I
For
mean,
you,
we
it's
do
probably
we have
second nature.
streaming platforms, but we still have cable. We'll probably hold on to it until whatever day,
Right,
August 1st,
right.
we can, because.
But you gotta click
Yeah.
and click
Click
and
and
click
click, I
and
know.
click and click, and I still don't have the TV on yet, but click it again. And which remote do I use? It depends if I'm
Exactly.
on the TV upstairs or downstairs. I mean, it's a trip.
You need an engineering
Yeah,
degree.
so
But we'll
the
get it, we'll
helpline
get it.
must be like
Yeah.
very busy right now. I just have to yell to one of my sons, come help.
I mean, and so that, I mean,
Yeah.
you talk about the federal laws from the 70s and 80s and whenever they were. I mean, talk about competition, right? I mean, it was an argument that was presented at the hearing. There is competition here already, right? You can buy YouTube TV
Yeah.
for
Right.
your TV
Yeah.
package, right? Like, it is all internet based, and of course, right? Like, there's no doubt they're not stringing coax cable, copper through the community. They're going to run fiber
Yeah.
optic cable.
Yeah.
They're trying to get at the internet business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you know, that's really important, in my opinion, because I think it's a public utility.
Did you have the young man coming through the neighborhood trying to get you to flip on, if you have your phone through town, and they want you to use their company, and they were offering all these
Oh, my
great
goodness.
deals, and
No, I
oh,
haven't
and
had that.
alluding to all my neighbors are switching, and it's like, I didn't think to say, do you have permission to come, you know, going house to house? Did you go through the police station to do this, or are you just here?
Yeah, yeah. Wow, I
It's
didn't
always a fair
realize they were
question.
being
Oh,
that
yeah.
proactive
Oh,
about
yeah,
it.
they come house to house,
Wow,
so.
wow.
Okay, enough whining there. The one thing I don't want to forget is at the parade, there was so much security. And it wasn't invasive. It was, the police were everywhere. They had, you know, you were confident that the streets were blocked appropriately. There's drones in the air, there's
Wow.
bikes going by. I mean, they were everywhere.
Love
And
the bikes.
yeah,
Great.
but it was just so nice to have that secure feeling, knowing that they were that close by and
Yeah.
around so much.
Yeah.
It was really well done, I thought.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, definitely.
do you have another question?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say again, thank you for everything that you do. And I don't think people in town know this, how much you do really juggle, how despite all of that juggling, you've maintained a AAA bond rating, which is so incredible. We're just so grateful for
Well,
you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But I wanted to ask, I was recently we met with a Bartholomew group
Yeah.
to review the library trust funds.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is also something that may be part of the special town meeting in the fall
Mm-hmm.
for us to consider whether to change the rules as to how trust funds
Sure.
are
Yeah.
invested
Yeah.
from whatever they're classified now to more prudent.
Yeah, so,
And I wanted
Yeah.
to get your opinion
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
So it's an initiative that I support.
Okay.
Generally speaking. So right now, so the way that municipal funds are allowed to be invested attempts appropriately to shelter communities from risk,
Yeah.
right? Like, not going out and buying Tesla or something like that. So there's something that's called the legal list, and which is, I think it's like somewhere around 40 stocks that are the only direct equities that communities can buy across any of their types of portfolios. And then there's an option that the local legislative body, town meeting, can give us authority, have our investment advisors invest funds a little more aggressively, but still rather conservatively in comparison to what a personal portfolio or a business would do, in attempts to, get
More
more
money.
return on our money. And, we work with really sophisticated companies with well over, I think it's Bartholomew has several $billion in assets of municipal governments under their control. It's not me pulling up Robin Hood on my phone or something and picking something. Like, it's not how it works. So it is an initiative that I think, without taking any undue risk, we can earn the town more money and have more assets. And it's interesting because in this type of economy where treasuries and notes and things like that are producing really well, it's really benefited us to be able to do that and receive more returns on our investment. But I think when it comes to trust funds, which are set aside and, for perpetual use for a particular purpose, it makes sense to give our investors a little bit more wiggle room.
Yeah.
And if you compare us to one of their private, we're still going to be one of the most conservative investment strategies that you ever have. But it could mean 0.5% or something like that. And over the long run, which is the game that we're in, can be very valuable.
Yeah. I
So
think
it is,
prudence says it all,
yeah,
doesn't
exactly.
it?
Yeah, it's not crazy
It's
or
not,
aggressive or anything like that.
And the
Yeah.
trust funds are still dictated by what the family donated the
whoever
money
the
towards. or what-
originator was.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
the town wouldn't have any control over that. The library still does that according to the law
Yep.
of,
Yep.
I declare I want to donate this money
There's
for,
specifications
Right.
as
Yep.
to how they're used.
yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
good
I
to
think
know.
it is something that we
Yeah.
will be pursuing in the fall and working with our partners at Bartholomew
good.
to make sure that we get that in.
I
It's a
know
good
that-
opportunity, I think.
This isn't a pat the town manager on the back show. But I have to point out a couple of things now that you're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about it. And how prudent, I want to use the right word, how prudent it was for you to, first of all, get UPS to put 30% of their building in town, so
Oh,
we reap the
absolutely.
benefits of them using our roads, but we get the tax dollars, over $500,000 a year, we will get just because you got them to move the building partway into our
Yeah,
town.
you angled it.
Yeah, and it, I mean, that was phenomenal, along with getting GFI to bring, I always say it wrong, FISIC, or however you want,
Yeah,
how do you?
physique instrument,
Physique.
yeah,
I always want to say FISIC, physique instrument into town, which brings from Germany, a world headquarters into Shrewsbury with what you would consider clean industrial use, right?
Yeah, clean
So-
manufacturing.
You're right.
Yep.
So those types of things you're on top of. You're doing that every day. We're just not aware of it. And I think people need to know that those things are happening because it's good for the residents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you saying that. Like, I've said this a zillion times, right? I love my job. I love what I do. And to work in a community that has vibrancy and what we have in Shrewsbury, I worked long and hard to get to a community like this, and I really like it.
Yeah.
It's
But like I said, it's not a pat you on the back
No,
show.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
not what we're here for.
Yeah.
But those are important things for residents
Yeah,
to know.
and it's something that we never take our eye off of, and I think we have a really good experienced team. It takes a team. It's not all me to exploit those opportunities, and we know and we have tons of leverage, and we can say, would love to talk to you if you can get that building into town, and here's the reason, here's all of our expenses that are, it was that's the case that we made to UPS. Here's Centec Fire Station. We're staffed 24/7 a day. We have firefighters there waiting. If there's an emergency call, they're going to be there first. Grafton has a station. They're not, they're a call fire department. They're going to come as well, and they're going to be our partners, but we're going to be there first. We certainly know all that traffic is coming into town.
Yeah, the last thing we want is more tractor
Yeah.
trailers, but that's what Route 20 was built for. It was supposed to be a truck route.
I hope someday are there plans for it to be
There is,
upgraded
yeah.
in some ways? So it can be a very dangerous
2026,
road.
yeah. So from
yeah.
South Street to the Northborough line, Westborough
Okay.
line, we have secured, Representative Kane, Senator Moore, Congressman McGovern have worked incredibly diligently along with people in Mass DOT to secure $30 million to upgrade that section of the
Good.
road.
And 80% is federal fund,
Yep.
and 20% is state funding.
And I almost said but we just went back to Congressman McGovern and said, hey, we'd like the final 20% if you can get it for us.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
he said, let me try.
yeah.
Right? Like, so we're doing everything that, we think we need to do to supplement this growth.
Yeah.
So here we go again. I gotta pat him on the back. So you have a good working relationship with all of our elected officials, and you maximize and get the town to benefit by their skills with whatever entity they represent us through.
Yeah.
So,
They're
here
all
you go.
incredibly tenured and sophisticated and responsible in their positions, and it takes them listening and understanding Shrewsbury as much as they do to, help us whenever we go to them, because they still have to find a solution. There's no doubt about it, right? A phone call from our office isn't the solution, it's the ask, and they have
And
to do a lot of work to get us there.
When people talk about term limits, you have to have term limits. It's like, you have to have experienced people too.
Yeah.
You have to have the people there that know and interact with the communities they represent. You want them to know how to make things happen. And that doesn't come with
Right.
when you're newly elected. That takes time. You're building relationships. And that's where term limits will hurt communities when they're trying to get things done.
Like everything else in life, it's a balancing act,
Right,
right? You need
right.
new people, but you also need
Yes, and you want
wise
new
and
people.
experienced people.
New
It's-
people
yeah,
give you that
have
energy.
energy and new
Yeah.
ideas, so
Yeah.
it's
And,
tough.
not only it takes time to build a team like this and get to work with, when you work with a lot of smart people, it raises your level and you learn how to do things better. And,
Yeah.
this community has a ton of assets when it comes to, working with really smart people that know how to get things done, especially in government, right?
Yeah.
And, it's been an incredible learning journey for me over the last 7 years too, to
Well,
be able to
you've
build
reorganized.
these relationships.
You've
Yeah.
reorganized
Yeah.
the whole structure
Yep.
in town government here. And when you first started doing it, I'm thinking, oh, I hope he knows what he's doing, which I knew you did. But, it's change, it's different. And you have it set up in a totally different structure, but it seems to be seamless. And what do you have to say about that?
It's not seamless.
Not seamless. No.
We appreciate, having the ability to change things. We need to modernize, right? There's no business that's sitting out there and operating like they were, 2 years ago, let alone, 10 years ago. And we've taken those opportunities to leverage technology and make improvements and change the way we operate. And it hasn't worked out perfectly. There's no doubt about it. That we struggled to get certain aspects of DPW up functioning well, and we just keep working at it. I mean,
But you're not
that's
afraid
what
to change it.
Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah,
I mean, for example,
change is hard.
the grass out in front of town hall that we had to spend all that money to have improved was full of dandelions this spring. And then the police station grass didn't come in the way it should. So I happened to see Keith Baldinger, who would be the person overseeing that, and I went, "Hey, Keith." And he's like, "Yeah, I know. And he went down the list of all of those things before I could even complain about it. He
knows,
he was
yeah.
on it. He already was on top of those companies to get it corrected. And so it's effective. And it was one less person you had to listen to because I said it to Keith. But he's on it. And I think it's the same with your finance.
David Snowden,
Yeah, and I think, it's a good structure. It seems like it's working for now,
Yeah.
but you're not afraid to change it,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
what's good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. You have an intermunicipal agreements with Westboro for animal control and inspectional services. How is the inspectional service part working out?
So it works out really well. Primarily, we use it for the trades, like so the plumbing and the electrical inspectors, because each town only has one, and folks like to take a week off here and there. But contractors won't ever stop working, right? Because that's their business. So we yeah, we partner with Westboro for kind of backup services in both of those areas. And, you know, whenever we had other challenges, if someone left the position, then, you know, it's really kind of like mutual aid on the building inspection side. We couldn't do it without Westboro, and I think they feel the same with
Well,
us.
that's
So,
such a good
yeah.
model.
It's
That's
really,
great.
but
Yeah.
our relationship with Westboro, when
Yeah.
it came to the sewer treatment plant,
Yeah.
was like the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like daggers would come out as you entered the room, being from
Really?
Shrewsbury. Oh, they just
Yeah.
would not work together.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of it was neither one wanted to relinquish control.
Yeah.
And neither one wanted to be told what to do. But over time, they learned how to play in the
learned how to
sandbox together. So it's actually exciting to know that you're talking about two intermunicipal agreements with Westboro. When we started out with the sewer treatment plant, that it was
Now we're
a
friends.
battle, and
Yeah.
now it seems to be working out.
Yeah, yeah, we have a great working partnership. Christy Williams is a town manager in Westboro, and she's a phenomenal leader and does a great job there. And we're working on what's next for that sewer treatment plant because, you know, we're at about 80% of the capacity. And both towns are sending about 80% of their allocated flow to the treatment plant, and that triggers some review by DEP, and they say, okay, what's next? Where are you gonna go? How are you gonna limit future connections, or are you gonna pursue a different permit? So
So do you have a plan?
we're just starting that.
What company do you work
right
with
now.
for that?
So we each have our own, we have a company that operates the treatment plant, and they're overseen by the board of directors, which has representatives from each town on it. And then each town has their own consulting engineer that does a lot of that detailed technical analysis for us. And we analyze our flows, analyze our future growth potential, and come back together and try to work with the DEP and EPA to see how much, it's really about how much we discharge back into the Assabet River. And,
Right.
you know, or current trends in the industry is to find a way to infiltrate it into the underground and allow, it's cleaned water, but it's not directly back into the river. So it allows the mechanically clean process and then more of a natural cleaning
Nature
process.
take.
Filtration.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that with, you know, limits as to how much you can discharge with mandates to build new
Yeah,
housing?
yeah,
I mean,
no.
again, that's another balance.
Yeah.
Interesting
right?
enough, I
Yeah.
mean, and this is the vision of Christy Williams in Westboro. She was at a meeting with some other state officials, and they said, well, what are some of your hurdles
Yeah.
to housing development? And
Yeah.
she said, well, we have this water, we have a sewer treatment plant that we're running out of capacity on. And they were like, what? So it is a big challenge.
Or even the use of water, right?
Yep.
Aren't we supposed to
Yeah, we
be
have a
very
limit.
mindful of
Yep,
that
yeah,
too?
we have a limit,
Yeah.
and Shrewsbury has done a great job of improving the efficiency of our water system and our sewer system to keep stormwater out of the sewer system and keep, you know, lower the average per person use of drinking water, which keeps capacity available for everyone else. But it is a huge challenge, and
Yeah.
when it comes to sewer, we've been really fortunate to be able to divert some flow away from Westboro and go
Oh,
to
good.
the upper Blackstone, you know,
Oh.
in Millbury. So, but most cities and towns don't have that option. Westboro, you know, all their eggs are in the Westboro treatment plant
Wow.
basket, so we've got to work with them as much as we can.
And the police department had an award ceremony.
They did. It was.
I thought it was
nice.
touching
Yep.
to hear, like, we've read and heard about some of the rescues that have happened in
Yeah.
town,
Yeah.
but to see the people that were responsible for that
Mm-hmm.
and to hear the story again, it was very touching. I thought it was a really nice thing, and it wasn't too long. It was, you know, it was pretty short, but there were many people recognized, which I think is a good leadership sign that someone, you know, wants to recognize the people for the good work that they
You
do.
know, the police department has a new face, not only a new building, but I feel that way anyway. I went to the new building dedication, and the chief's remarks will stay with me because they were really, you know, they weren't tough. They were very sensitive to the community's needs, and I appreciated that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Donna, you know, those other things behind the scene, right? Like I have the distinct honor and fortune to be able to talk with those officers and firefighters and see those things happen. That makes telling someone you got to move the building into town or you can go away, like that makes that easier, right?
Yeah.
Like we're working for
Yeah.
a purpose that is beyond any single person here, right?
Right.
It's for the community, which those it's the diversity of my position, but the balance of the position that it brings as well. It's
And of
good.
course, part of my age, I'm looking at the police officers and thinking, it's somebody's little boy who did that, you know? I mean, I watched those people grow up, and they're the ones who
They're getting younger, we're not getting
yeah.
older.
I mean, I kept seeing like, I remember that in my own career. You watched
Yeah.
people being so much older than you, and all of a sudden they're your age, and now they're like, you know, the doctor comes in and it's a little boy or a little girl, and you think, oh my word. But anyways, enough of that.
It's true.
The jet ski ban got voted down. And how's that working? Have you had any feedback over the summer yet?
I haven't heard a lot of complaints, but you know our patrols are way up, and I gotta thank Senator Moore for getting an earmark to help with funding some overtime of not only Shrewsbury but Worcester and the environmental police on the lake and specifically Flint Pond. So we're working at the issue. We're thinking about how can we leverage parking, you know, at the boat ramp and have, you know, expanded hours where you have to pay for parking, right? Just to try to keep, you know, the bad crowd out that,
Yeah.
you know, come in there and want
Because there's so many
not
people that
respect
are
the
there.
environment.
Right.
Yeah.
There's so many people that want to go there and just enjoy it
Yep.
peacefully.
That's
So
the-
you need to get those.
90+%.
Yeah, so you got to
95%.
get those other people and get rid of them so that people who live on the lake can have peace,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're working at a number of angles on that, but it's all about patrols and being present.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Did you have anything else you wanted?
Not really. I mean, Shrewsbury is a great community, and so many of the things that we're talking about are part of that. But I do think that library is kind of a gem in the town, and I'm hoping
Oh, it's
that
beautiful.
the town will continue to
Yep.
support that.
Well,
Yeah.
So when it's a release
Yeah.
time day
Yeah.
and you see the herd of kids coming
Yeah.
down the street, part of me, I laugh because, I mean, I can still remember back to being in junior high, and they just want to be together and they just
They
want to
do.
have fun,
They do.
but they're going to the
Yeah.
library.
Yeah.
And how
Well, we
are you
did
doing with that?
Better. We did change the child safety policy starting in September of last year, and I think it has kids 8th grade and up can come unsupervised for a period of time, and I think just it's cut down the numbers some, but yeah, I mean, kids just want to be kids.
Yeah.
And we don't want to dissuade them from coming to the library, but honestly, the numbers and quite frankly, some of the behaviors prior to that were very difficult to manage, so.
In my
this is
opinion,
better.
was throw them out. Just throw them out. And maybe, the rest will behave,
Yeah,
but.
no, it's great that we have a place that people want to come to, for sure,
And
yeah.
so when they get
Yeah.
there, are there things that are done developmentally to get them?
Yeah, there's
engaged?
always programs available for them,
Yeah.
but you said it, I mean, really what they want to do is
have
just to
fun.
be with each other and
Yeah.
have fun, and there's movies showing, and they'll come in and come out of the movie.
They're not
kind of a
really
thing,
watching the
not really
movie.
watch it. But, yeah, I think it's much more manageable.
Yeah,
Thank
well, that's
goodness.
good. And there's so
Yeah.
many people dedicated to the library. I mean,
Yeah.
that work behind the scenes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you've got the
Yeah.
employees, you've got the trustees, you've
Yeah.
got the friends.
The foundation
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of support there.
And-
I think it just makes the town part of what the town is, kind of that sense of community, that sense of pride, that sense of connection. And that it really all boils down to that. I mean, you're frustrated that sometimes there's a whole nother narrative, and I'm hoping that these senses of connection will reduce those kind of splintering off groups. And I do appreciate everything that the town is sending out for information. The police department has a newsletter now, and Taylor does a great job sending us stuff out, and it helps.
yeah.
And how is that paid for?
I mean, we've leveraged ARPA, American Rescue
yeah.
Plan Act funds to the greatest extent, but now we're transitioning it into the budget. And, you know, want to continue to make it a part of kind of normal operations and business.
So younger people have no problem looking at the stuff online. I like the paper, so I enjoy getting the paper. I
Yeah.
do use online,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
like the paper.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I know it's an expense,
It
but
is, yeah.
so at some point, my generation will go by and you won't have to worry about it. But in the meantime, you know, the younger people
Yeah.
get all of it off the computer and they're happy with it,
Yeah.
so.
It's true.
And then you've got the South Street DPW facility, how's that going?
Well, we just started, you know, we commissioned a new committee to look at that property and how they can leverage that property and what's required there to help relieve some of the space pressure at Town Hall. So we're just getting underway with that. It's a pretty aggressive time frame to bring some concepts back and be ready for the fall. In case there's an ask that soon at town meeting. We're working to not make that to be an increase on the taxes, right? To leverage, not only leverage water and sewer rates, we know that comes out of taxpayers' pockets as well, but also existing resources that we have that won't increase taxes. So it's a critical project for us right now because, you know, we have some space challenges at the town hall.
Now,
To put it lightly.
we have like about a minute, and you need to talk trash at
Okay.
least for
Yeah.
a minute.
Yep.
And
So,
tell everyone.
Yeah, so throughout the community right now, we have begun distributing the new recycling containers, so.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, we're putting out about 2,000 a day, so we have about another week to go. And they're not for use until July 1. Once July 1 hits, that's where all your recycling goes, single stream every week out to the curb, and your trash continues to stay in the blue bag. We're piloting the new bags and look to make some thickness and style changes to help folks out. And so we're moving those things along to try to make some improvements to those programs.
And there's instructions that come with the bin.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I thought there was a bag wrapped up in there too, so I was disappointed there wasn't a bag. But,
We may have just forgot yours.
maybe, but the instructions are pretty simple
Yeah.
and pretty clear. So that's actually
It's
good.
exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Deb, I'd like to thank you
Oh,
for
thank
being with
you.
us today. It was a quick hour.
It was.
And I'd like to say thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.